Are you carrying the weight of the past on your shoulders? Stay with me to discover the true freedom of letting go.
Have you ever stood in a room that once buzzed with the laughter of your children, now quiet and still, and wondered, where did all those years go? Perhaps you've looked in the mirror lately and seen your father's eyes looking back at you, or your mother's gentle smile, and felt that strange mix of recognition and surprise that time brings. My dear friend, if you've ever felt like life is asking you to release things you thought would always be yours, your strength, your role, your familiar routines, then this conversation is especially for you. I'm here today, not as someone who has all the answers, but as someone who has walked alongside many souls, navigating this sacred passage we call aging. And what I've learned through decades of Buddhist practice and simply living is that what we often fear as loss can become our greatest teacher of freedom. What if I told you that this stage of your life, right now, right where you are, could be the most liberating chapter you've ever experienced? What if the very things you're being asked to let go of are actually the keys to a peace you've never known? Stay with me and let me share with you an ancient wisdom that has comforted countless hearts, the art of letting go. You know, when I was younger, I used to think that getting older meant losing everything that mattered. I watched my own teacher, an elderly monk named Thich, slowly release his grip on the world around him. At first, it frightened me. I saw him give up his favorite walking stick when his hands grew too weak to hold it. I watched him stop leading the morning meditation when his voice became too soft to carry across the hall. But what I didn't understand then, what took me years to truly see, was that with each release, something beautiful was happening. Where I saw loss, he was discovering space. Where I feared emptiness, he was finding fullness. Do you know what he said to me one autumn afternoon as we watched leaves fall from an ancient oak tree? "Young friend," he whispered, "see how the tree doesn't fight to keep its leaves? It trusts that letting go is part of its nature. And look," he pointed to the golden carpet beneath our feet, "how beautiful the release becomes." This is what the Buddha understood 2,500 years ago, and what you and I are still learning today, that our deepest suffering comes not from what happens to us, but from how tightly we cling to what we think should stay the same. Let me ask you something, and please, just sit with this question for a moment. What are you holding on to right now that's causing you pain? Maybe it's the way your body used to move through the world, climbing stairs without thinking, gardening for hours without aching, dancing without worrying about balance. Perhaps it's a role that defined you for decades, being the one everyone came to for advice, the provider, the strong one who never needed help. Or maybe it's something deeper. Maybe you're holding on to regret about paths not taken, words not spoken, or time that felt wasted. Here's what the Buddhist teachings tell us about this kind of holding on. It's like trying to cup running water in our hands. The tighter we squeeze, the faster it flows through our fingers. I remember Maria, a woman who attended our meditation group for years. She was 73 when she first came to us, and she was carrying a grief so heavy it seemed to bend her shoulders forward. Her children had grown up and moved across the country. Her husband of 45 years had passed. The house that once echoed with family dinners now held only the sound of her own footsteps. "I feel like I'm disappearing," she told me one evening after our session. "Everything that made me who I am is gone." Do you ever feel this way? Like pieces of yourself are vanishing and you're not sure what's left? The Buddha had a word for what Maria was experiencing, what perhaps you felt too. Asterisk, dukkha, asterisk. It's often translated as suffering, but it's really more about the unsatisfactoriness that comes from trying to find permanent happiness in a world where everything is constantly changing. But here's the beautiful truth hidden within this teaching. If everything is impermanent, including our pain, our loss, our fear, then nothing we're experiencing right now will last forever. The Buddha taught that there are three fundamental truths about existence. The first is impermanence. Everything changes. The second is that this constant change often brings suffering when we resist it. But the third truth? The third truth is that there is a way out of this suffering, and it begins with letting go. Think about the seasons for a moment. Spring doesn't mourn the end of winter. Summer doesn't resist becoming autumn. Nature shows us, again and again, that letting go isn't about giving up. It's about making space for what wants to emerge. What if your aging isn't about losing who you are, but about discovering who you've always been beneath all the roles and responsibilities? What if, like the tree releasing its leaves, you're simply returning to your essential nature? Let me tell you about a story that changed how I understand this process of release. A young seeker once came to an old Zen master, eager to learn about enlightenment. The master invited him for tea. As they sat together, the master began pouring tea into the visitor's cup. He poured and poured, and even when the cup was full, he kept pouring. The tea spilled over the edges, across the table, onto the floor. "Stop!" cried the visitor. "The cup is full. No more will go in." The master set down the teapot and smiled gently. "Yes," he said, "and like this cup, you are full of your own ideas, your own fears, your own expectations about what your life should look like. How can I pour anything new into a cup that's already overflowing? Can you see yourself in this story? I know I can. For so many years, I filled my cup with ideas about who I needed to be, what I needed to accomplish, what a meaningful life should look like. And like that overflowing teacup, there was no room for anything new, anything unexpected, anything that didn't fit my narrow vision. But what happens when life begins to empty our cup for us? When age takes away some of our certainties, our roles, our familiar routines? At first, it can feel terrifying. We might panic and try to fill the cup again with anything we can find: busyness, worry, dwelling on the past, fighting against what's happening. But what if we chose differently? What if we saw the emptying as an invitation? This brings us to something beautiful in Buddhist practice called non-attachment *. Now, please don't mistake this for not caring or becoming cold and distant. Non-attachment isn't about loving less. It's about loving more freely. Let me explain with something you might recognize from your own experience. Think about your children when they were young. You loved them completely, didn't you? You wanted to protect them, guide them, sometimes control their choices to keep them safe. But as they grew older, true love required something difficult. It required letting them make their own mistakes, find their own way, become who they were meant to be, rather than who you thought they should be. This is non-attachment in action. Love without the desperate need to control the outcome. Now, can you apply this same gentle release to your own life? Can you love your memories without needing to live in the past? Can you appreciate your body's service without demanding it perform as it did decades ago? Can you honor your accomplishments without needing them to define your worth forever? I want to share with you a simple practice that has helped many people I've worked with. It's called the Thank You and Goodbye meditation. Find a quiet moment, maybe in your favorite chair, or sitting by a window where you can see the sky. Take a few deep breaths and bring to mind something you're struggling to release. Maybe it's a physical ability you miss, a relationship that has changed, or a version of yourself that no longer fits. Instead of pushing these thoughts away or drowning in them, try this. Place your hand on your heart and say, "Thank you for all the ways you served me. Thank you for the joy, the lessons, the experiences you brought into my life." Really feel that gratitude. Then, with the same gentleness you might use to release a bird back to the sky, whisper, "And now I let you go, with love." Here's something that might surprise you. The Buddha taught that impermanence isn't a curse. It's a gift. Think about it for a moment. If everything lasted forever, how would we ever appreciate a sunset? If we never aged, would we treasure the preciousness of time? If our loved ones never left us, would we hold them quite so tenderly? I once knew an elderly gardener named Robert who understood this deeply. At 85, his hands were gnarled with arthritis, and he could no longer tend the elaborate rose garden that had been his pride and joy for 30 years. Instead of mourning what he couldn't do, he began to focus on what he could observe. He would sit on his porch each morning with his coffee and watch the light change across his roses. "I see things now I never noticed when I was busy pruning and fertilizing," he told me. "The way the dew catches the early light. How the bees choose which flowers to visit first. The dance between the roses and the wind." Robert had discovered what the Buddhists call asterisk, beginner's mind asterisk, the ability to see the world with fresh eyes, free from the assumptions and expectations that can blind us to beauty. What would it mean for you to approach this stage of life with beginner's mind? Instead of comparing everything to how it used to be, what if you asked, "What's here now that I haven't noticed before?" You know, there's a word in Buddhism that I find particularly beautiful. Asterisk sanyata asterisk. It's often translated as emptiness, but that makes it sound sad or lonely. Really, it refers to the spaciousness that appears when we stop filling every moment with our mental chatter, our worries about the future, our regrets about the past. This emptiness isn't the emptiness of loss, it's the emptiness of potential. Like the sky that gives space for birds to fly, or the silence between musical notes that allows us to hear the melody. As we age, life naturally creates more of this spaciousness for us. Maybe you have fewer obligations pulling you in different directions. Perhaps you've learned to say no to things that don't truly matter. Maybe you've discovered that you need less. Fewer possessions, fewer distractions, fewer words to express what's in your heart. This isn't diminishment. This is refinement. This is the difference between a cluttered room and a Zen garden. Both might occupy the same amount of space, but which one allows your spirit to breathe? I think about my teacher Thich again, in those final years of his life. He had released so much, his physical strength, his teaching duties, even his ability to eat the foods he once enjoyed. But somehow, he seemed more present, more luminous than ever. When he looked at you, you felt seen in a way that few people ever achieve. When he spoke, even in whispers, his words carried a weight that could change your entire day. "What's your secret?" I asked him once. He smiled and tapped his chest. "Space," he said. "I made space for life to live through me, instead of trying to control how it should look." Let me offer you some gentle practices that can help you cultivate this art of letting go in your daily life. First, try starting each day with what I call the morning release. Before you get out of bed, take 3 deep breaths and ask yourself, what am I holding too tightly today? It might be an expectation about how your body should feel, a worry about your children, or frustration about something you can no longer do. Acknowledge whatever comes up, and then imagine releasing it with your exhale. Second, practice grateful goodbyes throughout your day. When you finish eating a meal you enjoyed, take a moment to thank it before clearing your plate. When the sun sets, say a quiet goodbye to the day. When you take off clothes that kept you warm, acknowledge their service. These small acts of appreciation and release train your heart to let go with love rather than resistance. Third, create what I call legacy moments. Instead of focusing on what you're losing, ask yourself, what wisdom am I gaining that could help someone else? Maybe it's patience you've developed through difficult times, or perspective you've gained about what truly matters. Find ways to share these gifts through conversations with grandchildren, notes to friends, or simply by modeling a peaceful way of being. And finally, practice present moment refuge. When grief about the past or anxiety about the future becomes overwhelming, come back to right now. Feel your breath. Notice the temperature of the air on your skin. Listen to the sounds around you. This moment, this one right here, is where your power lives. It's where peace is always available. I want to speak with you about something that might feel difficult, but it's central to the Buddhist understanding of letting go: the reality of death. In our culture, we often treat death as the ultimate failure, something to fight against with every breath. But in Buddhist tradition, death is viewed as the greatest teacher of how to live. Not because we should welcome it prematurely, but because awareness of our mortality can wake us up to the preciousness of what we have right now. When we truly accept that nothing lasts forever, not our bodies, not our relationships, not our circumstances, something magical happens. We stop wasting time on petty concerns. We become more generous with our love. We find the courage to be authentically ourselves because we realize how little time we have to spend being anyone else. I remember sitting with a woman named Eleanor during her final weeks. She was 91 and had been preparing for death for years through meditation and contemplation. "You know what I've learned?" she said, her voice soft but clear. "I spent so much energy in my younger years trying to make things permanent. My marriage had to last forever. My children had to need me always. My body had to stay strong indefinitely. But fighting impermanence is like trying to nail water to a wall. It's exhausting and it's impossible." She paused, looking out the window at a tree that was just beginning to show its autumn colors. "Now I see that everything I loved was even more beautiful because it was temporary. Every hug with my husband was precious because we both knew we wouldn't have infinite hugs. Every moment of good health was a gift because I knew it wouldn't last forever." Do you see the freedom in this perspective? When we stop demanding that life be different from what it is, we can actually begin to appreciate what it offers us. There's something I want you to understand about this stage of your life. You are living in what the Buddhists call the bardo, the space between what was and what will be. And this space, difficult as it sometimes feels, is sacred. You see, you have something that younger people don't have: perspective. You've lived through enough cycles of loss and renewal to understand that endings often make space for unexpected beginnings. You've survived heartbreaks that once felt insurmountable. You've weathered storms that seemed like they would never pass. This isn't just experience, this is wisdom. And here's what that wisdom teaches. You are not your roles. You are not your achievements. You are not your regrets or your failures. You are not even your body, though it has served you faithfully. You are the awareness that has witnessed all of these things, the constant presence that has remained through every change in your life. Think back to when you were 20. Can you remember the concerns that kept you awake at night? The dreams that seemed so urgent, so defining? How do they seem to you now? Probably much smaller, less earth-shaking than they felt at the time. This is the gift of perspective. And I promise you, the worries that feel so overwhelming today will likely seem just as small from the vantage point of even greater wisdom. But there's more. As you release the need to be in control of everything, you make space for something the Buddhists call effortless action, a way of being in the world that flows naturally from who you are rather than from who you think you should be. Let me tell you about something beautiful I've noticed about people who have learned the art of letting go. They become incredibly present. When you're no longer spending energy trying to hold on to the past or control the future, all of that energy becomes available for this moment, right here, right now. I think of my neighbor, Mrs. Chun, who is 87 years old. She moves slowly now, using a walker, as she can't see well enough to read anymore. But when you talk with her, you feel like you're the only person in the world. She listens with her whole being. She asks questions that show she really cares about your answers. She notices things, how the light falls across your face, the tone in your voice, the way you gesture when you talk about something you love. I have more time now, she told me once, because I'm not trying to be anywhere else. This is the paradox of aging gracefully. By accepting our limitations, we discover freedoms we never knew we had. By releasing our grip on life, we finally learn how to receive it fully. And here's something else I've observed. People who age with this kind of grace become magnets for others. Not because they're trying to be inspiring, but because they emanate a kind of peace that others desperately crave. They become elders in the truest sense. Not just people who have lived a long time, but people who have distilled wisdom from their experience and embody it in their daily lives. So how do you cultivate this quality of presence, this graceful acceptance, this art of letting go? Let me offer you some gentle practices that you can begin today. Start with your morning routine. Instead of immediately reaching for your phone or turning on the news, try spending just 5 minutes in silence. Sit by a window if possible and simply breathe. Notice what thoughts arise, but don't judge them or try to fix them. Think of your mind like a snow globe that's been shaken. The more you try to control the swirling, the longer it takes to settle. Just sit quietly and let the snow settle on its own. Throughout the day, practice what I call micro releases. When you notice yourself gripping something tightly, a frustration, a worry, an expectation, take a conscious breath and soften your hold. You don't have to resolve anything or make any big decisions. Just soften, just breathe, just create a little space around whatever you're experiencing. When memories arise, especially painful ones, try greeting them like old friends rather than intruders. Oh, there's that time I disappointed my daughter. Hello, old pain. I see you're still here. Don't try to banish these memories, but don't let them take over your whole day either. Acknowledge them, thank them for whatever they taught you, and then gently redirect your attention to the present moment. And please, be patient with yourself. Learning to let go is a practice, not a destination. Some days will feel easier than others. Some releases will flow naturally, while others will require more effort and grace. This is completely normal and human. Here's something beautiful about learning to let go gracefully. It's a gift not just to yourself, but to everyone around you. When your children see you releasing your need to control their choices, they feel permission to make their own mistakes and discoveries. When your friends witness you accepting your physical limitations without bitterness, they learn that aging doesn't have to mean losing dignity. When your grandchildren observe you finding joy in simple pleasures, they understand that happiness doesn't require perfect circumstances. You become a teacher simply by being yourself, by showing others that it's possible to face change with equanimity, loss with grace, and uncertainty with trust. I think of a man named David who used to attend our meditation group. He had been a successful businessman, used to making things happen through sheer force of will. When Parkinson's disease began to slow him down, he initially fought against every symptom, every limitation. But gradually, through practice and reflection, he learned to work with his condition rather than against it. I used to think strength meant never giving up, he shared with our group one evening. But now I think strength means knowing when to surrender. My hands shake now, but my heart is steadier than it's ever been. David's children later told me that watching their father navigate his illness with such grace had changed how they approached difficulties in their own lives. His letting go had become a legacy of wisdom. As we near the end of our time together, I want to touch on something that might sound mysterious, but is actually quite practical. The Buddhist understanding that our true nature is already free, already complete, already at peace. All the things you think you need to become, all the problems you think you need to solve, all the peace you think you need to find, these may already be closer than you imagine. The person you're trying to become through letting go, that person might already be here, just waiting to be uncovered beneath layers of worry, regret, and resistance. It's like the story of the person who spent years searching for their glasses, only to discover they were wearing them the whole time. The freedom you're seeking through release might not be something you need to create. It might be something you simply need to stop covering up. This doesn't mean your struggles aren't real or that your pain doesn't matter. It means that beneath the surface of these experiences, something in you remains untouched, unbroken, always available as a refuge. When you sit quietly and feel into this truth, you might notice a quality of awareness that has been constant throughout your entire life. It's the same awareness that looked out through your eyes when you were 5 years old, the same presence that witnessed your wedding day, your children's births, your moments of greatest joy and deepest sorrow. This awareness doesn't age. It doesn't diminish. It doesn't depend on your body's strength or your mind's sharpness. It simply observes, accepts, and remains peacefully present. Learning to rest in this awareness more and more. This is perhaps the deepest meaning of letting go. My dear friend, as we come to the end of our conversation, I want to leave you with this. You are not broken. You are not failing. You are not losing yourself as you age. You are simply being asked to discover who you are beneath all the roles, all the achievements, all the stories you've told about yourself. The art of letting go isn't about giving up or giving in. It's about giving over, surrendering to the wisdom that life itself is trying to teach you through every experience, every loss, every unexpected turn. You have lived long enough to see that things work out, even when they don't work out the way you planned. You have survived every difficult day that has ever happened to you. You have loved and been loved, contributed and received, learned and grown. You have already accomplished the most important thing any human being can accomplish. You have lived. Now, in this precious time that remains, you have the opportunity to distill all of that living into wisdom, all of that experience into presence, all of that love into a legacy that will ripple forward long after you're gone. The leaves that fall from the tree don't disappear. They nourish the soil that will feed next spring's growth. Your letting go is not an ending, but a contribution to the endless cycle of life, love, and learning. So be gentle with yourself as you practice this art. Be patient with the process. Trust that each release, however small, is making space for something beautiful to emerge. And remember, you are not alone in this journey. Every person who has ever lived has faced the same fundamental challenge of learning to hold life lightly, to love freely, and to let go with grace. May you find peace in this truth. May you discover freedom in this practice. And may you know, deep in your bones, that you are exactly where you need to be, exactly when you need to be here. The art of letting go is really the art of coming home, to yourself, to this moment, to the love that has always been your true nature. Welcome home, my friend. Welcome home. Take a moment now, if you will, to simply breathe. Feel the weight of your body in whatever chair or space you're occupying. Notice the air entering and leaving your lungs, this simple miracle that has sustained you for all these years. What would it feel like to let this breath teach you about letting go? You don't hold on to the inhale. You naturally release it to make space for the next breath. You don't grasp the exhale. You trust that another inhale will come. This is the rhythm of life itself. Receiving and releasing, holding and letting go, trusting in the natural flow that has carried you this far and will carry you wherever you're meant to go next. Rest in this rhythm. Rest in this trust. Rest in the deep, knowing that all is well, exactly as it is.